What first caught my attention? The photographs. Hundreds of images from the 1860s and 70s that make absolutely no sense. Look at any picture of an early railway terminal. Really look. What do you notice, or rather, what do you fail to notice? No soot, no smoke stains, no blackened ceilings, no coal residue anywhere. We are taught that the 19th century choked on industrial pollution, that cities drowned in smog, that everything was covered in black grime from endless coal burning. Yet these photographs show gleaming glass domes, pristine white stone, polished metal surfaces reflecting light like mirrors. The platforms look cleaner than modern airports, and the locomotives themselves examine them carefully. In image after image, the early engines produce almost no visible exhaust. Some appear to glide silently along the tracks, no billowing smoke, no clouds of steam, just motion. This was my first clue that something fundamental was wrong with the official story. Because if coal powered everything, where was all the coal residue? If steam drove every engine, why did so many early photographs show no steam at all? I started asking questions. And the more I asked, the less the accepted history made sense. Consider something else. Every major railway terminal of that era was built directly beside a river. London, Paris, Brussels, New York, every single one. The official explanation claims this was for cargo transportation. But the stations were passenger terminals, not freight yards. Why would passenger buildings need direct river access? Then there were the fountains, enormous water features positioned at every major entrance, constructed at precisely the same time as the stations themselves. Today, historians dismiss these as decorative landscaping, mere ornamentation for wealthy travelers. But when I examined the engineering records, I discovered these fountains connected to underground channels leading directly beneath the platforms. Channels far too large for simple decoration. What were they really for? The architecture itself told a story nobody wanted to hear. I spent months studying terminals like Antwerp Central, St. Pancras, and Gare du Nord. What I found defied every assumption about Victorian construction. These buildings were not designed as shelters for passengers. They were designed as machines. Examine the structural patterns. Every dome follows precise harmonic ratios, the same mathematical relationships found in acoustic chambers and resonance halls. Every arch aligns with cardinal directions. Every foundation connects to waterways through elaborate underground systems. The credited architects, men celebrated in history books for their genius, did not actually design the complex parts. They designed facades, decorations, surface ornamentation. The engineering core, the actual functional heart of these structures, remains almost completely undocumented. I found references to hydraulic elevators capable of lifting entire railway carriages, rotating platforms that spun silently through water pressure alone, no steam required. Underground reservoirs holding thousands of gallons, connected to the platforms above through intricate valve systems. The more I investigated, the clearer the picture became. These terminals operated on water power, not as a supplement to steam, but as the primary energy source. Channels beneath the platforms circulated pressurized water. Valves controlled the flow. Reservoirs stored potential energy. The entire system functioned like one integrated hydraulic machine. And then I discovered something even more disturbing. Engineering journals from the 1860s describe atmospheric propulsion systems, trains moved by air pressure differences, created through water displacement. Newspapers from the 1870s mention locomotives that produced no smoke, vehicles that moved with silent acceleration. These records exist, I have seen them, yet every modern textbook ignores them completely. Here's what troubles me most. The documentation stops, abruptly, completely. Throughout the 1860s and 70s, engineers published detailed papers about water pressure experiments, siphon mechanisms, atmospheric locomotion. Technical journals featured diagrams of hydraulic systems. Construction records described underground reservoir networks. Then around 1890, silence. No more papers, no more diagrams, no more records, as though someone gathered every document and made it disappear. I searched archives across 3 continents. The pattern repeated everywhere. Original engineering blueprints missing, construction photographs removed from collections, technical manuals listed in old catalogs but never found on shelves. The few documents that survived tell a troubling story. They show systems far more sophisticated than steam technology. Clean, efficient, self-sustaining. Systems that required no coal shipments, no fuel purchases, no supply chains controlled by industrial corporations. Perhaps that explains why they vanished. Ask yourself who benefits when energy requires constant fuel purchases. Who profits when transportation depends on coal mines and oil fields? Who gains power when cities cannot function without corporate supply networks? A civilization running on free-flowing water power threatens every monopoly, every empire built on resource control, every fortune accumulated through fuel distribution. The technology did not fail. The technology was erased. Set aside the energy systems for a moment. Consider only the construction itself. How did workers in the 1860s build structures we cannot replicate today? No electric drills, no motorized cranes, no laser measurement tools, no computer modeling, no reinforced concrete, no modern metallurgy. They had hand tools, horse-drawn carts, basic block and tackle systems, steam engines that barely generated enough power to move themselves, yet they produced buildings filled with steel arches curved to mathematical perfection, glass domes spanning hundreds of feet without internal supports, iron frameworks balanced so precisely they have stood for over a century without significant repair. The official explanation insists Victorian workers simply possessed extraordinary skill. Generations of craftsmen trained in techniques now lost, remarkable dedication to quality that modern builders cannot match. I do not believe this, not because I doubt human capability, but because the timeline makes no sense. These terminals appeared within decades. Dozens of identical structures across multiple continents, all built simultaneously, featuring the same impossible precision, as though builders everywhere suddenly discovered the same construction techniques at the same historical moment. That does not happen naturally. That happens when someone distributes existing knowledge, when someone shares blueprints for technologies already developed elsewhere. When builders follow instructions they did not create themselves. The Victorians were not inventors. They were inheritors, caretakers of knowledge passed down from somewhere else. And the buildings they maintained were not new constructions. They were ancient machines given modern purposes. This explains why the architecture feels wrong for its supposed era, why the geometry matches patterns from civilizations thousands of years older, why the engineering surpasses anything we can achieve today. These terminals were not built in the 1800s. They were rediscovered. Once you accept the possibility that these structures predate their official construction dates, certain patterns become impossible to ignore. The architectural style appears across every continent, the same arches, the same domes, the same proportions, the same underground water systems, as though a single civilization once spanned the entire globe, building according to unified principles we no longer understand. Researchers call this lost civilization Tartaria, a world empire erased from official history sometime in the 1800s, a culture that mastered energy systems we are only beginning to rediscover, a people who built not just beautiful structures, but functional machines that harvested power from water, pressure, resonance, and geometry itself. The railway terminals fit this pattern perfectly. They were not transportation buildings. They were energy nodes, collection points in a global network that channeled natural forces through precisely calibrated architecture. Imagine what that world looked like. Trains that required no fuel because the tracks themselves provided propulsion through atmospheric pressure. Stations that generated their own power through water circulation. Cities connected by clean, silent, self-sustaining transportation networks. No coal mines, no oil barons, no pollution, no dependency on corporate fuel suppliers. That world existed. The photographs prove it. The engineering records confirm it. The architecture demonstrates it. and then someone destroyed it. The transition happened faster than any natural technological shift could explain. Within 2 decades, everything changed. In 1870, terminals gleamed with polished glass and pristine stonework. Trains glided smoothly along electrified or pressurized tracks. Underground reservoirs powered hydraulic systems throughout the stations. By 1895, those same buildings were black with soot. Coal smoke poured from every locomotive. The underground channels had been filled with concrete. The hydraulic systems had been ripped out and replaced with primitive steam machinery. Look at photographs from 1905. You can see workers dismantling enormous valves, components far too large for any steam system. You can see channels being sealed with iron plates. You can see elegant machinery being hauled away as scrap. This was not modernization. This was demolition. Systematic destruction of superior technology and replacement with inferior alternatives. Why would anyone do this? Why replace clean energy with dirty fuel? Why substitute silent efficiency with noisy pollution? Why downgrade perfectly functional systems? Because the old technology could not be controlled, could not be metered, could not be sold. Water flows freely. Atmospheric pressure exists everywhere. Resonance and geometry require no fuel purchases. A civilization powered by these forces owes nothing to industrial monopolies. But coal must be mined, transported, and sold. Oil must be extracted, refined, and distributed. Steam engines require constant fuel supplies controlled by whoever owns the supply chains. The Great Replacement was not technological progress. It was economic conquest, the destruction of free energy and the installation of paid alternatives, the elimination of independence and the establishment of dependency. And it worked. Within a generation, humanity forgot that any other system had ever existed. Today, the evidence hides in plain sight. The sealed tunnels beneath major terminals, the filled reservoirs under much city streets, the architectural proportions that match no Victorian design principles, the photographs showing impossible cleanliness in an age of coal. Most people walk past these clues every day without noticing. They accept the official story because questioning it requires questioning everything else they believe about history, progress, and civilization itself. But once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. The railway terminals of the 1800s were not primitive beginnings. They were sophisticated endings. The final remnants of a global civilization systematically erased and replaced with something far less advanced. We did not progress from steam to electricity to modern transportation. We regressed from free energy to paid fuel to perpetual dependency. The arc of history bends not toward improvement, but toward control. The Tartarian infrastructure still exists beneath our feet. Sealed chambers, flooded tunnels, disabled machinery, waiting for someone to remember what it once did. Perhaps that knowledge will resurface someday. Perhaps the old systems can be restored. Perhaps humanity will rediscover the clean, silent, self-sustaining technology that once powered an entire civilization. Until then, the terminals stand as monuments to what we lost. Beautiful facades concealing gutted machines. Architectural marvels stripped of their original purpose. Silent witnesses to the greatest technological robbery in human history. This investigation continues. There are more terminals to examine, more archives to search, more photographs to analyze, more sealed chambers to document. Every new discovery confirms the same conclusion. The official history of the 19th century is incomplete at best, deliberately falsified at worst. Something extraordinary existed before the age of coal. Something was taken from us. Something we are only now beginning to remember. If you have watched this far, you understand what is at stake. Not just historical accuracy, but the possibility that better technologies already exist, buried beneath layers of concrete and generations of propaganda. Your support matters more than algorithms or metrics. Every subscription signals that someone else is paying attention. Every like confirms that the truth still finds audiences willing to hear it. Share this with others who question official narratives. The more people who see these patterns, the harder they become to deny. We are pulling back a curtain that has been closed for over a century. What waits behind it will change everything you thought you knew. Stay with me. The deepest revelations are still ahead.